The Twins have been interested in left-hander Andrew Heaney in the past. Will they make another run at the lefty this offseason and another southpaw who may be intriguing on the free agent market? It's all coming up on today's episode of Locked On Twins.
You are Locked On Twins, your daily Minnesota Twins podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome to the Locked On Minnesota Twins podcast. Today is Friday, November 25th, and I'm your gracious host, Nash Walker. Thanks for making Locked On Twins your first listen every single day on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline is where the game starts. Again, this is Nash Walker, 3 seasons, 4 off seasons, hosting a daily podcast on the Minnesota Twins, 4 seasons, 4 off seasons, writing about the Twins at twinsdaily.com. The Twins last year reported interest and maybe even an offer to left-hander Andrew Heaney. And at the time, thinking, why? Why would they offer Andrew Heaney, the Angels pitcher who was coming off a year where he was simply awful? Traded to the Yankees at the deadline. He had a 5.83 ERA in 2021. That brought his career ERA up to a non-remarkable 4.72. That's 10% below league average. It's not like there's underlying numbers that show he's been unlucky. His FIP was 4.45, so slightly, but just, pretty mediocre to poor lefty in his career, like a 5th starter. And the Twins were interested last year. I guess they were in the market for a lot of pitching last year because they needed it, but the Dodgers signed him, and he kind of sounded like he had his pick of 1-year deals, and the Dodgers got him on a 1-year, $8 million deal, I want to say, which at the time, again, I was thinking, that seems crazy. But what did he go out and do? 3.10 ERA. Best year of his career. It was shortened by injury, shoulder soreness. We'll get to that. But it was Andrew Heaney's best year of his career. His strikeout rate absolutely ballooned. 36% strikeout rate in 2022 for Andrew Heaney. Prior to 2022, his strikeout rate, sub 25%. He bumps that thing up to 36% in 2022 with the Dodgers. I'm not surprised about that, right? The Dodgers, they get a lot out of everybody. And it shouldn't be a surprise that they found a way to tweak Andrew Heaney and turn him into a very effective starter. He didn't go very deep into games. He pitched 16 games, 14 starts, but only eclipsed 70 innings, 72 and 2/3, 110 strikeouts, 19 walks for Andrew Heaney. Gave up a lot of homers, always kind of has, and that's a risk with a lefty and a risk with a lefty at Target Field. Gave up 14 homers in those 72 and 2/3 innings, but overall, outstanding year for Andrew Heaney when he pitched, and the underlying numbers were there. So what happened? How did Andrew Heaney become at least a mid-rotation starter and with some frontline starter upside now maybe going into the offseason while they tweaked his slider? And we see that a lot with pitchers. The Dodgers know they're one of the most analytically inclined organizations in baseball, if not the most, probably with Houston, 2 of the more successful organizations. They tweaked his slider. They turned that pitch into an absolute weapon in 2022. Nasty righties and lefties. Andrew Heaney just buried with that slider. Tons of movement. Great spin. He's great spin numbers on the fastball. Fastball's up, sliders down and in, or sliders down and away. Usually a pretty good formula. 96th percentile in whiff rate for Andrew Heaney in 2022. Tremendous. It was a breakout year, but it was a weird year because he missed so much time with shoulder soreness. If he wouldn't have missed time with shoulder soreness, who knows what would have happened, but he made meaningful changes with his slider, and it resulted in the best season of his career, the best year of his career. Still got hit pretty hard when he did get hit, but that's the difference for him. He's always given up a lot of homers. Now, because his strikeout rate is so high and he's getting so many whiffs, there's less contact, which in turn, it's less homer, you're less homer prone only because you give up less contact. It's not about giving up, like, for example, Yohan Duran's a good example of this. Yohan Duran, when the ball is put in play, he gives up a lot of ground balls, but when the ball is put in play, he's not any better than, I would say, a run-of-the-mill reliever. The thing that's great about Yohan Duran is he gets swings and misses. So more than the average reliever, much more, Yohan Duran gets swings and misses in the zone, gets chases, gets strikeouts. And for Andrew Heaney, the change and why his numbers were so much better, even though he gave up, essentially just as many homers at the same rate, is because he got so many more swings and misses, and he wasn't adept to that ball and play luck. He was prevented from what could happen on a ball in play because he gave up less balls in play. And we know, like, on average, when you give up a ball in play, 300, right? The batting average on those in an average season. But when you give up less balls in play, your numbers are going to be better. And that's what happened for Andrew Heaney. The strikeout rate just ballooned. He still gave up a bunch of homers, but he gave up less balls in play. Therefore, his ERA was 3.10. Would the Twins be interested in Andrew Heaney again this offseason? The Becker median, John Becker, has the median contract for Andrew Heaney at 2 years and $25 million. He's 31 years old. There's risk here with Heaney, less so on a 1-year deal last year, but he's coming off a season where he had shoulder problems in his left shoulder. Really nice year, but shoulder problems, there's risk in that. And as we touched on with Eovaldi, I think this is a similar case with Andrew Heaney. The Twins absolutely would be interested in a guy like Andrew Heaney because his market is depleted because of his injury. And 2 for 25, if Andrew Heaney would have had a 3.10 ERA over 150 innings, he's getting a 3-4, maybe even a 5-year deal because he made meaningful changes and teams already believed he had that upside within him. Hence his market last year on 1-year deals, even though he had a 4-something ERA coming into the offseason. There's already that sense that he could break out, and he did. It was just in a small amount of innings. So would the Twins make an offer to Andrew Heaney? What might that look like? And do I think they have a legitimate shot at him? Plus, another interesting lefty on the free agent market for the Twins to fill a potential rotation hole. After this word from BetOnline. BetOnline.net is your number one source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. Get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there. From football to basketball to soccer and esports, we've got it all at BetOnline.net. And if you love sports podcasts, you can find those at BetOnline as well. We're always the fastest and easiest way to get your betting fix. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline is where the game starts. I hope you had a great Thanksgiving, and I hope you won your plays at BetOnline. The thing I love about BetOnline is it's so easy to use on your phone. I prefer the desktop, but either way, whatever you decide to do, it's very easy to use. It's very user-friendly, and they have info, stats, news, analysis, lines, betting opportunities. Whatever you're looking for, BetOnline.net is the fastest and easiest way to get your betting fix. Head to the website today, again, or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline is where the game starts. Thanks again for making Locked On Twins your first listen today. For your second listen today, check out Locked On Sports today. From the games that matter the most to the biggest stories in sports, go beyond the scoreboard and behind the scenes with local experts and insights only Locked On can provide. Locked On Sports today, available on this app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts on, the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Andrew Heaney, would the Twins make Andrew Heaney an offer again this offseason? It's a fair question. I don't know. I don't know if they will. It's an interesting question, though, based on what he just did. I would tend to believe the Twins would be even more interested in Andrew Heaney now because he proved those changes can be made and he proved he can pitch well. It was a shortened season for him because of his shoulder. You don't know what that's going to look like or if it's going to happen over 150 innings. But this is the type of risk this Twins front office would take because it's a measured risk, a 2-year, $25 million deal. Really, what's the risk in that, right? If Andrew Heaney does what he just did, which is 72 innings of quality ball, you pay him $12.5 million. That's more than you want to pay. You're hoping for more innings than that, but it's not the end of the world, and that's why the Twins favor deals like this, deals for higher upside, oft injured pitchers, because they feel like they can get them for a bargain. And I touched on that with Nathan Eovaldi. I think it's a very, very similar case with Andrew Heaney. Less of a track record, certainly for Heaney than Eovaldi, but that's why he's projected to only get a 2-year deal. And Eovaldi, I think, will get a 3-year, maybe even a 4-year deal in free agency. Andrew Heaney fits that mold that we touched on with Eovaldi as well. That coming out of spring training, I think the Twins would benefit from a 6-man rotation. Heaney's a lefty. I think he would fit in wonderfully with a very right-handed staff as a 6th starter. Every 6th day, you kind of ease him in, take care of those innings because he only had 72 last year. Mahle, we know, is on an innings count, I think, early on. Bailey Ober, Kenta Maeda, question marks up and down the rotation. So you add another arm who can fill in every 6th day out of the gate. And it's similar to Eovaldi, except Heaney doesn't fill the mold of a game 1 starter, even with his upside. Like he showed last year, he can be pretty dominant. He can get a lot of swings and misses. He can be nasty, but he's never really done that. Compared to Eovaldi's been there in those big spots. He pitched in the American League East. Like it's a different situation with Heaney. If he has a really nice year, could he be a game 2 or 3 starter in a playoff series? Absolutely, especially against teams who struggle against left-handed pitching. That's the other part of this. I tend to favor, and I wonder if the Twins do too, because they haven't had like a lefty addition in their rotation since, I guess, J Happ was one of the only ones they've ever signed in the rotation. This division, I tend to favor right-handed starters. And that's mostly because of the White Sox being so right-handed. They might make some changes this offseason. I think they will, to become more left-handed because they're exposed by right-handed pitching. And I think the Twins work to have a rotation that exposed right-handed hitters, that they had those platoon advantages against the White Sox. But with Cleveland this year, who I think is the biggest threat going into 2023, they struggled against lefties, really struggled against lefties in 2022. I think it would benefit the Twins to add a lefty to this staff. You got 5 or 6 or 7 right-handed pitchers. There's not a single lefty coming, especially after the Twins traded Cade Povich and Steve Hajar, 2 lefties at the trade deadline. I don't see any lefties coming. Devin Smeltzer's out of the org. Like, maybe it's time to bring in at least one. I don't think it should be a mandate like, oh, this righty's a lot better. Like Nathan Eovaldi or Andrew Heaney. Oh, let's go get Heaney because he's left-handed. No. But I think that's a factor. Like, I think it's something this staff could potentially benefit from. I think there was some truth to Devin Smeltzer in 2022 being so different stylistically from the rest of the rotation that you would see Sonny, you would see Joe, you would see Bailey, and then, here's Devin Smeltzer throwing 89 from the left side instead of this right-handed pitcher who's thrown at a weird arm slot in Joe Ryan, and a 6'8" righty in Bailey Ober, and a movement and a 2-seamer with Sonny Gray. It's a different look, and I do think that the Twins benefited from that in 2022 with Devin Smeltzer. I think that could be the case as well with Andrew Heaney, just to get those different, going from Sonny Gray to Andrew Heaney in 2 days for an offense, completely different. Arm slots, arm throwing, height, extension, stuff. It's all so different, and it's such an adjustment for an offense. I think that's a factor in this. I could see the Twins bringing in Andrew Heaney. Absolutely. I think he fits their mold. When we talk about what they will do and what they should do, I would love for them to shoot higher than Andrew Heaney, but what they will do is I think they'll sign somebody like Andrew Heaney, like this boat of players who are not going to cost that much, who have injury histories, who, the market might be colder on, but they have some upside. I think that's what's going to happen with the Twins this offseason. I think Andrew Heaney, he fits that bill. Does Sean Manaea fit that bill? Sean Manaea, coming off a year in San Diego, also left-handed, so keep that in mind. He's going to be 31 in February. Does he fit that bill? He might be a little bit more like Chris Bassett, but it's different because Bassett's coming off a really nice year and Manaea's coming off the worst year of his career. 4.96 ERA, that was 25% worse than league average. 4.53 FIP, so some bad luck mixed in there, but Manaea got hit hard and he gave up a lot of homers, and he just wasn't the same like innings eater guy he was in Oakland in his first season in San Diego. Before this year, he had a 3.86 ERA in almost 130 starts. That's a 1.07 ERA plus. That's 7% better than league average. 3.96 FIP. Solid, like a solid 3rd or 4th starter before this year. This year he was poor, but he's still going to be 31. He has a track record of being successful. I think he did love the foul territory in Oakland. That's something to consider there. But Sean Manaea could be a buy low candidate, I think, for the Twins. Sinker, he's not going to blow you away from the left side. Sinker, 91, 92. He's a sinker changeup guy. Sinker change 85% of the time. He'll throw a slider once in a while. It's a good slider, so maybe the Twins would add him and say, let's throw that slider more, and then he'll flip up a curve once in a while. But the worst numbers of his, since his early Oakland days, on that changeup. Changeup got hit hard. Expected WOBA was lower than the actual WOBA. So again, there's some bad luck mixed in there with Sean Manaea. Expected ERA was 4.05, which is almost a run less than his actual ERA. But it wasn't a great year for him, on a team that had World Series aspirations that made it to the NLCS. Sean Manaea wasn't really a factor down the stretch. 158 innings, that's valuable. I did say for the Twins, that's less valuable than in years past, especially last year. He is a buy low candidate, and Becker has his median at 2 years and $24 million, so just about the same as Andrew Heaney. With Manaea, the difference between Manaea and Heaney is Manaea, you're just hoping gets back to a 380, 390 ERA, that 108, 110 ERA plus range where he's 8 to 10% better than league average, and he makes a start every fifth day, gives you a chance to win 8 out of 10 times, and he's just a solid left-handed pitcher who's going to make 25 to 30 starts for you. That's valuable for 2 years and $24 million. With Andrew Heaney, it's more about the quality of those innings, much like Nathan Eovaldi. You're hoping for maybe 100, 120 innings of just high quality, low threes ERA, nasty, dominant left-handed pitcher. That's what you're hoping for with Heaney. Manaea, we need innings. We're hoping for innings. We're hoping for a solid, mid to back of the rotation starter. And I've made the case over and over and over, and I will again. The Twins simply don't need back of the rotation starters, but there might be some more upside here with Manaea. Career strikeout rate's 22% in the last 2 years combined. It's 25%. He's solid. Like, he's a solid left-handed pitcher. He'll throw up in the zone. We saw him pitch against the Twins in San Diego. Jose Miranda homered off of him. Jose Miranda hit lefties pretty well. I don't know if you knew that. In 2022, sinkers up, changeups down and away. Pretty straightforward. Some sliders, curveball. Pretty straightforward, but he gets great extension as well. So there's some deception in that delivery. Gets on you quick. The numbers across the board. He got hit hard. The strikeout rate was mediocre. The walk rate, mediocre. The whiff rate, mediocre. If you believe he can get back to the guy he was in Oakland, he's worth a 2-year, $24 million deal. He was one of the better trade target starters on the market last year. Him and Chris Bassett both traded from Oakland. Bassett to the Mets, Manaea to San Diego. I remember thinking, hey, maybe the Twins should go after Sean Manaea to fill some innings. And he did fill innings. Like, he would have led the Twins in innings, I believe, or right there with Joe Ryan. They just weren't quality innings for Manaea. I'm conflicted on whether I think the Twins would target someone like him, if they would target Sean Manaea. I think the way the Twins would target Sean Manaea would be, we get to the end of the offseason, they didn't, they find out Tyler Maley's not going to be ready, or Kenta Maeda's not going to be ready, or they find, they learn something about one of their pitchers that gives them concern or pause, and Sean Manaea is still on the open market trying to get his payday. I believe he's represented by Boris, so I take that for what you will. But let's say he's still on the open market. Teams are down on him. He's not getting the contract he wants. It's a lot of one-year deals. He's looking for a multi-year deal. And the Twins look and say, okay, well, we need somebody. And, we like Sean Manaea enough to believe that he can get back to who he was. And that was just an off year for him in 2022 and what has otherwise been a pretty solid career. Let's bring him in for 2 years, $24 million. Very much like the Marwin Gonzalez signing. I don't think Sean Manaea is somebody the Twins would go out and target in free agency. I could be wrong. He just doesn't seem like that type of guy for them. Maybe they see more, but the velocity, he's already thrown 885 innings in the big leagues. He's going to be 31. Maybe there's more to unlock here. Maybe there's more. Maybe there will be more unlocked in 2023. It's just harder to see than it is for someone like Andrew Heaney, because it looked like Andrew Heaney was unlocked in 2022 in terms of swings and misses and finding the dominant stuff to get strikeouts. For Manaea, I just don't know if that's there. I don't know if that's there, and I don't know if the Twins would see that. They might. It's possible. I don't think this is someone they would target in free agency. This would be a late offseason pickup when you learn something else or you miss out on somebody else. I could see that for Sean Manaea. So far in this practice of looking at starting pitchers, we've looked at, Rodon. We've touched on Verlander and DeGrom, but that would be an unbelievable miracle. For the Twins, it's that next class, and we'll get to Jameson Taillon as well and his fit, but it's Heaney, Manaea, Eovaldi, Bassett. We've looked at those four. For me, from 1 to 4 for who the Twins are most likely to target, I think it goes Eovaldi, Heaney, Manaea, Bassett. And it sounds like, according to Darren Wolfson, not much on the Bassett train from what he's heard, and that makes sense to me. Like, I don't think Chris Bassett is going to be in Minnesota. Frankly, I don't think Sean Manaea will be either. And I don't know if any of these four will be. It's unlikely. But if they were to sign one of these four in that second class, in that second tier, it's going to be Eovaldi or Heaney for me. And Eovaldi paces because I do think that he has game one upside. I think he has game one starter upside because of his velo. And he does have injury questions, much like Andrew Heaney. It's just there's more of a track record there with Nathan Eovaldi than there is for Andrew Heaney. I could see either of them in Twins uniforms. I'd be surprised if Manaea and or Bassett were, especially Bassett. We'll see. I don't know what the Twins are going to do, and I'm intrigued by what they'll do on the starting pitching market. I think it's going to be a Heaney or Eovaldi type that they either sign or trade for. Tyone's coming up. We got catchers coming up. We got outfielders coming up. Winter meetings are coming up. You're going to want to stick around and listen to Locked On Twins. I want to thank you so much. I'm grateful for you this Thanksgiving holiday for listening to Locked On Twins. As always, I want to thank you for making Locked On Twins your first listen today. For your second listen today, check out Locked On Sports today. From the games that matter the most to the biggest stories in sports, go beyond the scoreboard and behind the scenes with local experts and insights only Locked On can provide. Locked On Sports today, available on this app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts on, the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. We'll be back Monday with those free agent profiles, where they fit with the Twins. Thanks again. Have a great weekend, and go Twins.